Welcome back to Taste for Adventure. Today we're talking about BJCP Category 4B, which is the Festbier. Aaron, what does the BJCP say about the Festbier?
Festbiers are described in BJCP Category 4B, categorized under Category 4, Pale Malty European Lagers. The guidelines go into a lot of detail in all aspects of the style, and we'll give you the abridged version here. Aroma should be malt forward with an emphasis on toasty, doughy aromatics and an impression of sweetness, low to medium noble hops, and clean fermentation. Appearance should be in the golden color range, not amber like a Marzen. It should be very clear with a persistent white head. Flavor should have a bread dough and lightly toasty malt flavors, balanced towards malt, but with some supporting bitterness. It should have some noble hop flavors and be clean with no esters or phenols. Mouthfeel is medium-bodied with medium carbonation and somewhat creamy. Overall impression should be a smooth German lager with a moderately strong malty flavor and light hop character. It should showcase German malt flavors without becoming too heavy or filling.
So when I think of Oktoberfest, I kind of always default to Marzens, right? Where did the Festbier come from?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, when you say Oktoberfest type of beer, they think of your orange amber sort of fall lagers, and that's okay, especially in the U.S. because the Marzens were the original German Oktoberfest beer, and a lot of American beer companies will say they're Oktoberfest beer, and really it's a Marzen.
Okay.
In a lot of times.
Right, that makes sense.
So really, Marzen is the old original classic Oktoberfest style, and since 1990, it's been mostly Festbiers at the Munich Festival. So if you went to Munich for Oktoberfest after the pandemic, when people can travel again, they'd mostly be serving the paler Festbiers, not the amber Marzens.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Both styles are very similar, with Festbiers mostly just being paler than Marzens.
Are there any huge differences in Festbiers and Marzens besides the color?
Marzens can be all Munich malt, and they really showcase the Munich malt, whereas Festbiers are mostly a German Pils malt with some Vienna and Munich malts to round out the grist. So Pils malt is lighter than Munich, and that translates to the color. Yeast and hops are generally the same, and really doing a deep dive in the guidelines, when you look at the numeric ranges, Festbiers can have an ABV of 5.8 to 6.3, which is exactly the same as the Marzens.
Yeah.
And you might think the darker beer would be a little heavier, a little bit higher alcohol, but that's not the case. They both have exactly that same range. And the IBUs differ very slightly, and I think it's kind of funny because Festbiers can have an IBU range of 18 to 25 IBUs, and Marzens are 18 to 24 IBUs. So if you go into 25, you're out of style.
You're out of
Marzen.
there.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but really, they're both about the same as far as bitterness and alcohol. It's really just a little bit of the malt flavors, and the color is the big difference.
Well, then I guess it kind of makes sense that one might have more easily, I don't want to say replaced, but sort of taken the place of the other one.
Yeah, and I think the Festbiers, they might not be heavier, they're not like a heavy bodied beer, but the Festbiers, I think the flavors are a little bit lighter. They're similar to the Marzens, but they're going to be a little bit lighter flavored, so it goes even better with the German food and to be drunk in high quantities.
Yeah.
So as the Germans do.
As they do. Well, we got 4 good ones here tonight.
Yeah, what do we have? We've
got Maplewood Festbier, Soundgrowler Wurzburg, 3 Floyds Munsterfest, and Weihenstephaner. What is that? Weihenstephaner.
Oh, Weihenstephaner.
All right. Well, there you go. Their Festbier.
All right. Well, the Weihenstephaner is a classic German import, we've been trying to include, and the other 3 are from 3 American craft breweries.
Yeah. Well, let's get in with the Maplewood Festbier.
All right. Okay.
We have Maplewood's Festbier.
Yes.
Pretty concisely named. Pretty clean nose.
Yep.
Got that light toastiness.
Yeah, some grainy white bread malt.
Oh, yeah.
I'm getting low, kind of all those noble hops. A little bit of herbal, spice, and floral.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, it's very light, very crisp, clean.
Yeah. So Maplewood is a craft brewery in Chicago that really produces some really great beers. They do some really nice lagers.
Oh,
they
yeah.
have their IPA Juicy Pants is really good, and some good stouts and kind of specialty beers as well.
Yeah, they're based out of the Ravenswood neighborhood.
I think that sounds right.
I think that sounds about right.
Yeah.
So if you're ever in Chicago,
you
can actually try 2 of these breweries if you're in the area, because 3 Floyds is northwest Indiana.
Yeah, well, and so Soundgrowler is in Tinley Park.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, they're
Very
all
nice.
kind of right in that belt. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if after quarantine, just hop on down and let's really date the episode.
I bet there'll be a lot of like brewery tours and hopping going on after quarantine. So.
Oh yeah. But that is nice though. It's it's very clean and very crisp, and I like it a lot. It's very clear. It's got that kind of a paler golden.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of like a pale gold,
it's like a wheat,
almost more like a yellow. Yeah, it's pretty nicely clear. I knocked it a bit because there's virtually no head.
Yeah, I did notice that when I was pouring.
Yeah, and it's not even that the head faded quickly. It never even stood up.
Yeah.
So I did knock it a point there in appearance. Aroma, pretty high marks. I give it a 9 out of 12.
I can't even really get it to come back if I swirl it or anything like that. So
yeah, which is weird because it actually tastes like pretty okay as far as carbonation. Mm-hmm. Just for whatever reason, the head
it's nice and creamy. It's got a good mouthfeel to it.
Yep.
Crisp. I could see drinking this and just chowing down some pretzels.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think this beer would go very well with really all kinds of different meals. Yeah. It's light, but it's not flavorless.
No, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So lots of very light malt flavor, grainy, lightly toasted white bread. Yep. I would bet that there's a lot of Pils malt in this.
Sure.
That's
what
a lot of the best examples have. It's not bitter, but it is pretty well attenuated, and kind of herbal and delicate hop flavor.
Yeah. This is extremely drinkable.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm almost done with my whole taster. And we've only been talking about it for a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, overall, I would say definitely very authentic Oktoberfest Festbier flavor. Malt is a little bit more grainy than it is like bready or toasty. So if I were to make a recommendation on that, I would say maybe round out the malt bill a little bit more to push it out of, because Pilsner malts can tend to be that very grainy, like raw quality, where if they mix in maybe a little bit more Vienna and Munich malts, you'd go a little bit more into the lightly toasty.
Sure.
But those are really just fine-tuned points. Overall, very, very good.
Well, I'd say it's probably right in the style, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah, I scored it overall a 40 out of 50.
That's a really great score.
Yeah.
That's an excellent score, really. Yeah. So. Yeah, and I'd probably put it probably in the same area, same range. Definitely have more than one.
Yeah, for sure. Well done, Maplewood.
Mm-hmm. It's a good first entry into tonight's episode.
It is, yeah. Pretty robust foam there when you open it up there.
Yeah, it jumped right out at me.
Wow, look at that nice foam stand as you poured it. And that's a nice, like, kind of a deep golden color. All right. So, Roma, it's really clean.
Yep.
No esters, no fruitiness, just really like robust malt. Bready, and especially has like a nice like toasted bread crust flavor or aroma. I mean.
Yep.
No real hops. Super. It's just like clean bread
it's really
crust.
clean. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really nice.
That is really good.
Yeah. So appearance brilliant and clear. That's a nice kind of a gold color that I think is
it's
pretty much right
gold.
what you want a Festbier to be.
And it had that nice headstand. We had a little bit of a splash down there, but
Yeah.
you know, it comes back right away when you swirl it. It's just kind of a creamy white.
Yeah, very, very nice looking Festbier.
Creamy beer all around.
Taste here. Oh wow.
Yep.
So whereas the Maplewood was real clean, malty, but a little bit more grainy, this has more of that bread.
It's got
bread
definitely more on the
toast.
bread side, bread toast.
Yeah. I would say as good as the Maplewood was, this is like absolutely like right.
Oh,
in
yeah.
I mean, if that was like the bull ring of a bullseye, this is like the bull's eye.
Yep.
This is right
This
there.
is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this a lot. And it's saying something, guys. I like the other one a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this one is really excellent. I love that. I love that breadiness. You know, it's got a really great creamy mouthfeel and everything to it.
Yeah, clean but prominent light continental malt profile with low but balancing bitterness and a light floral hop quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of peeking over to your score sheet there. Is that a 45 out of 50? I see.
It is a 45. Yeah, I scored this thing very. I mean, it's name a fault with this beer. Name something that they could do better on.
I mean, I can't. Really, really clean. I mean, you could. I feel like they use really good water for this.
Yeah. The pH is in balance. Is a good point.
Yeah.
I think the yeast is just right. It's well attenuated.
Oh, yeah.
Mouth feels great.
Yeah.
Just a really extremely good all around beer.
This is one to look out for if you're in the Chicagoland region.
Yeah, I don't think Soundgrowler is super well known, and Festbier styles aren't really well known either. But I mean, this is a fantastic beer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
fantastic beer. You know, the can art is awesome. We kind of showcased that a little earlier, but you know, they're really onto something. This is a brewery to kind of look out for.
Might be.
I'm in.
I would put this still like, I still kind of hold the imported German versions under like the highest regard, and
of course,
I would put this up with any of those guys. It tastes authentic. It is really like bready without being caramely, and it's still well attenuated. Super, super well balanced, and just an amazing example of a U.S. small craft U.S. brewery doing it very well.
Oh yeah, doing it, just knocking it out of the park, really.
Yeah,
I could rave about this beer. That's great. So great job on Soundgrowler. Great job on the Wurzburg. Nice.
Yeah.
So that's a pleasant surprise. Brewery I've never heard of knocking it out of the park.
Yeah.
Man.
And I think it's always nice when I love trying new breweries, exploring new styles, and finding things, and then you just uncover these hidden gems, and that's a little bit of the adventure and taste for adventure.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Finding these things,
Yeah, and we've had some real sleeper hits on our other series that we have. So check out those episodes. Well, I'd say Floyds Munsterfest has its work cut out for it to dethrone this one.
Yeah, these first two beers have really set the bar super high.
Yep.
So Floyds is a pretty well-known brewery nationally and even internationally. Of course, they are known for their Dark Lord Day festival. But they're more locally, I think, known for their extremely hoppy beers.
Yes.
Zombie Dust, I thought, was a really prominent early pale ale that featured Citra really heavily. Their Alpha King, they've been around since the early 90s.
Yep.
and it seems like all of their beers tend to ratchet the hops up a lot. They're really well known for that. So I would expect for that one to be maybe a hoppy fest beer.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, and I mean, I like Three Floyds well enough. I think that's a problem that I have with them, is that they all sort of lean to hoppiness. So, you know, for styles such as this that aren't terribly hoppy, it kind of seems like it would be automatic point loss.
Yeah, but, you know, sometimes they do other styles of beers too. Like one of my favorite beers from them is Moloko. It's a milk stout, and that's not very hoppy at all, and it's a delicious beer. Okay. So they're real well known for their beers. I would probably expect it to be more highly hopped than the upper range of 25, but I'm excited to try it out.
Well, let's crack it open.
Okay. All right.
It's a pretty cool bottle art here. It's
yeah, actually, I am wearing the Munsterfest shirt as well, which I picked up. They actually had kind of a Munsterfest, an Oktoberfest party. It's different than the bottle art, but
yeah, it features the same guy fighting a Mechagodzilla, non-copyright infringing Mechagodzilla.
Right. That's another really cool thing about Floyd's is they usually partner up with comic book artists to come up with their label art, and it's always like their aesthetic is so cool.
Oh yeah,
it's just so cool.
They're always consistently have really cool bottles.
Yeah. All right.
Well, that is considerably more amber.
Yeah.
But look how clear that is.
It's very, very clear. You know, this might. I wonder, even though it's called. So we put it into the Festbier episode.
Yes.
Because it's called Munsterfest. And then it actually says Oktoberfest style lager, which, as we know, Oktoberfest is not a style of lager, right?
No.
It can either be a Marzen or a Festbier. So I wonder if this is actually... This might just be a Marzen.
All right. Well, surprise.
Yeah. So... nothing necessarily wrong with that. It's just interesting, and that's just one example of how U.S. craft breweries they might just call their beer an Oktoberfest style.
It's marketed that way.
Yep, and when they're amber like this and smelling it a lot more bready, rich than I think the Festbiers. So yeah, I'll probably just judge this as a Marzen.
Yep, it's got an interesting sweetness. There's actually no really it's not a lot of hops to speak of.
Give this
not in the nose, not in the taste.
I'm getting a little bit of fruity.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's from the malts or from like an ester.
Yeah.
But there's definitely like a fruitiness.
There's a sweetness in the taste for sure.
Oh, there's a lot of sweetness in the taste.
Now, where do you think that comes from?
So it's interesting. We kind of preempted this by saying Three Floyds is known for kind of super hopping their beers.
Yeah.
Sweetness, really, there's a number of ways you get sweetness in beer.
Okay.
One can be when you have a lot of malts, there will be residual sweetness, and that's usually balanced on the other side by hops, because the bitterness and the sweetness can kind of cancel each other out.
Okay.
So I think this beer probably is definitely more balanced towards the malt.
Yeah.
And if they would have raised the hops a bit, it wouldn't be quite as perceived as sweet, because especially if they added bittering hops, the bitter and the sweet can kind of cancel each other out to some degree.
Okay.
The other thing could be the types of malts they use.
Okay.
So I would suspect, given the color, the aroma, and the flavor, I would suspect they put some caramel malts in there.
Okay.
Which, so caramel malts are going to give it a really nice color. They're going to give it a nice kind of rounded sweetness. But sometimes in styles like this, they will leave additional residual sweetness and that caramel, sugary type taste.
Yep.
And I'm definitely getting that.
Yeah.
Now, in most traditional examples of Marzens and in Festbiers, you're going to want to avoid the caramel malts because you don't want the sweetness in this style. Yeah.
I mean, all things considered, I'm liking this. You know, it's a Christmas miracle Oktoberfest miracle anyway that
Oktoberfestivus.
Yeah, that I'm enjoying a Three Floyds beer. You know, it's
Yeah.
not overpowering me with hops, which is I mean, maybe it's not a problem for people who enjoy hoppier beers.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of not my thing, but this is definitely very enjoyable. I have to reevaluate my opinion of Three Floyds after this one.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like a palm type ester, so like
Sure.
think pear or
Yeah.
like red apple. I'm getting a little bit of esteriness, and definitely some caramel malt sweetness.
Yeah, it's a little bready, but not like turnover.
Right,
That,
right.
You know, I've described a couple of beers in other episodes as turnovery, but not like that. Not here.
No, and I think this is pretty typical of kind of a generic American craft a beer they might label an Oktoberfest, where it's a malty amber lager that they put out in the fall, and they call it an Oktoberfest style.
Yeah, easy enough.
Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it is a Marzen or is a Festbier. I almost think that, you know, maybe in the BJCP in the future, they can put out a style that is like an American Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
I see so many breweries putting out good beers in the fall that really don't fit in the category of Festbier or Oktoberfest, but they're still good.
Right. They call them Oktoberfests, and it's
right.
It almost seems like there is like a third style that we're gonna have to probably start considering here, like in the next maybe a couple of years. I mean, I can see before, you know, the end of the decade.
Yeah, I mean, because this is not like an American amber, because that would be an ale. It would have a little bit different flavor profile, a little bit roastier, a little bit hoppier. Where this is, it's malty and it has more of the neutral lager characteristics. So
yeah, good beer. Just I mean, I imagine you'd probably ding it if you're by judging it in either of the metrics.
Yeah, I would definitely dig. I mean, going strictly against Marzen, you know, the aroma, I just don't think the aroma is quite there. It's evident that there's some caramel malts. I'm getting some of the fruity esters. So I dinged it a bit. Now, I filled the score sheet out before the episode, and I'm trying it again now. And I don't think I'm as harsh on it in this tasting as I was prejudging.
Sure.
So, but I'd maybe score it like a 7-ish for aroma, because it doesn't have that like big, bold, fresh out of the oven bread, you know, that a Marzen or a Festbier should have. Appearance is good, although there's not very much head.
Yeah.
And the flavor, it's crisp without really being bitter, but again, I think some of the more characterful yeast, a little bit of the esters, and definitely like the caramel sweetness are going to be big knocks on this one.
Yeah.
Mouthfeel's pretty good, and overall, I think it's, you know, when you judge, is it to style, and is it flawed? And I don't think this beer has any flaws. You know, there is no, you know, it's not oxidized. It doesn't have, you know, any of the big, you know, off flavors, but it's just not to style for a Marzen.
Yeah. Well, and that's the kind of thing I was just thinking about. You know, I mean, this is a good beer. This is a very serviceable beer.
Yeah.
I would have more than one of these beers, which is, I guess, that's why that's my metric.
Yeah.
But judging this as a fest beer, or more probably more accurately a Marzen, it just isn't. I mean, it would get judged harshly. Against those metrics. An otherwise serviceable, a good beer.
Yeah.
Just being judged really harshly because of because of the style. So.
Yeah, it definitely falls into that really broad but kind of nebulous category of American Oktoberfest beers. Where is this a Festbier? Is it a Marzen? Or is it a well-made amber lager that's put out in the fall? And I think it falls in the third.
Of course.
On that.
Yeah. Because this, I mean, I'm kind of peeking over at your sheet there, but you probably would have scored it significantly higher if they weren't calling it an Oktoberfest, or maybe if Oktoberfest were its own category.
Well, but here's the thing: like, what else could this be entered as? It's not an American amber.
No.
It doesn't really taste like a Vienna lager either. It's in this category that the BJCP does not have a category for right now.
Yep.
So this type of beer is a great beer for craft beer fans. I think it's a great beer for, like, if you were to homebrew a beer like this, but it's not going to do very well in a competition because it does not fit within the rigid guidelines of the BJCP right now. So yeah, there's my pitch to Gordon Strong. Add a maybe like an American fall festival beer in the guidelines to fit in these beers like this.
Yeah, and then in a few years, when that is true, when that is a fact, we can give this a nice 38 out of 50 for whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty good. It's a good beer overall. It's just it's kind of a homeless, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah, if somebody showed up and said, "Hey, let's have some good beers together and tell me what you think," I'd be happy if somebody brought me this. But I'd probably also tell them that it's not really a German one of the German Oktoberfest styles. It's more in that American Oktoberfest void.
Yeah. Well, luckily for us, we do have a German Oktoberfest style beer.
Yes.
The Weihenstephaner.
All right, Weihenstephaner, yes.
So their Festbier. That'll kind of round out our flight for this episode. And pretty good one to do. The authentic German Festbier.
Yeah, very good. I'm excited to finish this out with classic German.
All right. Well, let's do it.
All right, so the label says we're world's oldest brewery.
Yes, and then proceeds to go on to say that they were established in 1040.
1040. I think. What do you think? Taste for Adventure road trip. Let's go to their millennium anniversary in 2040.
So amazing.
I think that sounds like a life goal. Right.
I think we could do it.
I think we could. 2040. Mm-hmm. Join us.
Yeah.
And let's go to the first millennium birthday party for a brewery.
Well, hopefully we have, roughly 20 years of content to to sort of get us there.
I'm going. I mean, I can tell you that right now. I'm going. All right.
Well, let's dive into this beer. This is a distinctly what I would call yellow, very pale yellow.
Yeah, very pale. It's definitely on the very lightest end of the Festbier scale.
It's incredibly clear.
Yeah.
Look at that. The head kind of, sticks around a little bit. It's got some residual. Maybe something you'd expect from the world's oldest brewery. Hopefully, they've been brewing this one for a little while.
Well, and they've probably only brewed 4 styles at Weihenstephaner.
Probably.
Bread and cracker.
Oh, yeah.
Rich malt, but not heavily toasty or sweet.
Yeah. What's amazing where you can kind of look at a beer, smell a beer, and be like, oh, yeah, that smells like that looks.
Yeah.
Just with how clear and yellow it is.
It does have a nice spicy noble hop aroma in there, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I smell that.
It smells like it looks, and it tastes like it smells.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's nearly 1,000 years worth of brewing ingenuity for
German brewing perfection. Look at that.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yep.
Oh boy. If they brew this even half as well as they do in 2040 as they did now, we're in. Lots of an old man.
Yeah.
We're both gonna be old men in 2040.
It's all right. We'll be able to afford a trip to Germany in 2040.
Hopefully.
So yeah, lots of white bread and cracker flavor. Oh, yeah. Medium low, spicy herbal floral noble hops.
Yeah, I definitely get the cracker side.
Yeah, a little bit firmer on the bitterness than I might have expected. It's not like an IPA, but
it's definitely balanced nice.
Yeah, I would say even compared to the other 3 that we had, a little bit firmer bitterness. Yeah.
Now, does this one fall into the archetypes of Festbier that the BJCP is known for?
Oh yeah. If this is, I would be surprised if this is not one of the, classic examples of style.
Right.
They can only list so many German breweries that are classic examples of style. But I think this is right.
Yeah.
This could be right along with any of the other German imports, setting the bar on what a Festbier could be.
Yeah. 1,000-year-old brewery. I'd be surprised if it's not.
Yeah.
If you haven't gotten it right in nearly 1,000 years, you're doing something wrong.
Well, if you haven't gotten it right, then you won't be around for 1,000 years.
That's also fair.
Very
fair. Nice. This is a really excellent beer.
Yes, it is. Medium light body, medium carb. Yep. It's not really creamy. It's maybe a little tiny bit sharp.
Yep. Good head.
Yeah. But really, it's classic. It's really what a Festbier should taste like. You can tell it's well attenuated. It's crisp, but it's not really dry though.
No, I wouldn't call it dry.
No, it's everything a Festbier should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely taste that like cracker.
Yeah,
that kind of just. You
don't swallow any like pretzels in your cheeks. Like
not quite. Yeah,
okay,
no,
right.
I'm all right there on that front. But yeah, that's nice. That's really nice. This would go incredibly well with pretzels.
Yeah,
I mean, you're sitting at maybe a more authentic German Oktoberfest, drinking one of these, eating pretzels, waiting for your sizzling sausage to come out of the oven.
Yeah,
You've got a tankard this size
That's
of
right. That's right.
with all the beer you could want in it. This is really something else.
As much as I liked our entire lineup,
it was a good flight.
I think I still have to put this one on the pedestal.
Yeah, this one's pretty great. I would probably do this one, probably the Soundgrowler, the Maplewood, and then I think 3 Floyds, just kind of. If we're going judging completely based on style, then that'd be it for me.
Yeah, that's exactly the ranking that I kind of had in my head too. Yeah. So, and I almost wish that we didn't have this one to skew it because Soundgrowler,
it's so good.
It was good.
Really good.
Yeah,
it still is good. All of these beers were honestly really good.
They were.
This was a great flight.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when you are giving a numerical ranking to something has to come in last.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you try other styles. I think that Festbiers are so narrowly defined that but it's interesting, even in the narrow definition of a Festbier, we got a pretty good range of flavors and things.
Absolutely.
They all still tasted different, but they were all still just a classically good beer. Mm-hmm. I think beers that have more range, we mentioned maybe like an American Amber, you're going to have a lot more range for interpretation. And I think your judging scores and the way they strike your tongue is going to be wider. You're going to get more of a variety that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, this has been around for so long. These other ones are more... They're newer breweries, especially, comparatively, let's say 3 Floyds has been around for probably the longest. Doesn't touch... Weihenstephaner. But still really good entries, it's hard to beat the genuine article.
Yeah.
I'm glad I poured this one a little heavier handed than I did the other ones, that's for sure.
Yeah, so if you're not all that familiar with Festbiers, or if you default to the Amber Marzens when you think of Oktoberfest, please try to seek out Festbiers and give them a try. I think it's a really, really nice alternative, or not even alternative, an addition. Yeah. Do a side-by-side tasting. Find an authentic Festbier, find an authentic Marzen, try them side by side, and make those comparisons for yourself. I think Festbier, maybe more than Marzen even, is a beer that I could enjoy any time of the year.
Yeah.
I think because of the quality, they are really good by themselves.
Yeah.
If you're watching a game on TV, I could see drinking a couple of these.
Oh yeah.
Or with virtually any kind of meal, because they're not overpoweringly flavored, but they're not flavorless either.
No, this is an excellent a complementary beer, I would say. I mean, I
Yeah.
could see drinking this with some kind of chicken dish, or if you're a vegetarian, something like that. I mean, this would probably be fine with like a steak. Definitely your sausages and your heartier, breadier kind of meals. Your German Oktoberfest. Put some sauerkraut next to this.
Yeah. Or I could even drink this at a summer barbecue. Which
sure.
sounds almost sacrilegious because it's a September October type beer, but it's light enough.
It's really easy drinking and it's nice. It's super. Yeah. No, this is a great style. This will overtake really anything at any of your parties.
Yeah.
Something like that. But.
Yeah. There's a few other styles that are like that. My sort of flagship beer that I brew. My home brewery is an English bitter, and it's actually kind of similar to this, where it's malty but has some bitterness.
Yep.
Now, an English bitter is going to be a little bit more bitter, but it'll also it'll also have more caramel flavors as well.
Right.
So it's it's still apples and oranges, but I think it's in that area where it's not too heavy. It's not too dark, it's not too light, and it goes well year-round with all kinds of different pairings.
Yeah.
But yeah, Festbier, I think, can be enjoyed year-round, and really a great style.
Yeah, and luckily for you at home, we've got a whole series about Festbiers, Oktoberfest. We've got our entire intro to beer tasting and judging series, so a lot of Festbiers to sort of look at.
That's right. So stay tuned. Keep checking out the rest of our playlist on Oktoberfest beers and the rest of our channel as well.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.